I recently faced my own worst nightmare. The HOA president picked my lock at 5 a.m. and stormed my living room, snapping inspection photos. Her excuse? A made-up bylaw for pre-dawn visual hazard audits. Funny thing is, the only code enforced was the one I arrested her with. Let me start from the beginning. The alarm didn't wake me. Oh no, that would be too simple, too normal. What woke me was the sound of my wife, Nicole, letting out a shriek that could curdle milk from 3 counties away. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, 5 a.m., the time when sensible people are dreaming or perhaps just beginning to stir with the gentle promise of coffee. But in our little slice of suburban paradise, 5 a.m. was apparently prime time for, well, I didn't know what yet. But with that scream, I figured a bear had learned to use the doorknob, or the apocalypse had started early and chosen our foyer as ground zero. I vaulted out of bed, heart doing a drum solo against my ribs, and grabbed my robe. Instinct, or maybe just years of habit, made me also grab the small, comforting weight of my off-duty badge from the nightstand. Federal judge sounds fancy, and sometimes it is. Other times, it just means you have a really good reason to own a lot of serious-looking suits. I thundered down the stairs, probably looking like a very grumpy, bathrobe-clad bear myself, and there she was.
Karen.
Of course it was Karen, our HOA president. 45 years old, though she carried herself with the bitter authority of a 1,000-year-old monarch who'd just been told her favorite flavor of sorbet was discontinued. She was standing in our living room, bold as brass, her phone out, snapping pictures. Pictures of what, you ask? Our dust bunnies. The slightly less than perfectly fluffed couch cushions. The sheer audacity of us existing in her kingdom before sunrise. My wife, Nicole, was pressed against the far wall, looking like she'd seen a ghost, a very tacky, tracksuit-wearing ghost. What in the blazes do you think you're doing, Karen? I boomed, trying to channel every ounce of judicial sternness I possessed, which is considerable, even in plaid flannel. Karen didn't even flinch. She just lowered her phone a fraction, a smirk playing on her lips that made me want to check if my fly was down, even though I was in a robe. "Emergency inspection, Judge," she said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. Bylaw 7, subsection C, paragraph 2. Threat to community aesthetics. I got a report.
A report?
At 5 in the morning? From who the moon? I stepped forward. "You pick my lock, Karen. That's breaking and entering." I held up my badge. "And I'm telling you, as a federal officer, to get out of my house.
Now."
This, I thought, would be the point where a normal person, even a slightly unhinged HOA president, would realize they'd crossed a line. A very big, flashing, neon-lit line. But Karen, bless her heart, was not a normal person. She scoffed. Actually scoffed. Then she did the unthinkable. She shoved past me, a man who, while perhaps not in peak physical condition, still outweighed her by a good 50 pounds, and was, I reiterate, a federal judge telling her to vacate his premises. She raised her phone again, aimed it at poor Bartholomew, our golden retriever, who was cowering by Nicole's legs and emitting low, worried whimpers, and your dog, Karen sneered, is clearly over the approved weight limit for pets in this development. Violation. Snap.
Flash.
That was it. My protective instincts, already on high alert because of Nicole, went into overdrive. No one messes with my wife, and no one, absolutely no one, fat shames my dog. "Karen," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "you have 3 seconds to leave before I physically remove you." Her response? She swung her clipboard. Not a flimsy little piece of cardboard. Oh no. This was one of those heavy-duty plastic ones, probably requisitioned from a Cold War bunker. It connected with my lip. Stars. I saw actual stars. Then, as I was reeling from the shock and the sudden taste of blood, she whipped out a small canister from her tracksuit pocket. Pepper spray. And she hosed Bartholomew. My poor dog yelped, a sound of pure agony and confusion, and started rubbing his face frantically against the carpet. The world went red. Not literally, though my lip was throbbing, but that kind of incandescent rage that wipes out all rational thought. I tackled her. It wasn't elegant. It was more of a lumbering, bathrobe-clad lunge. We went down in a heap, Karen screeching like a banshee whose microphone had just been unplugged. I got her hands restrained, vaguely aware of Nicole calling 911 in a trembling voice. Adrenaline is a funny thing. I managed to get Karen flipped over, pinned her arms behind her back, and then, because muscle memory is also a funny thing, I actually read her Miranda rights right there on my living room carpet, with my dog sneezing uncontrollably and my lips swelling to twice its normal size. "You have the right to remain silent," I panted. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Not that you seem to care about laws, Karen, but hey, procedure." The local police arrived, followed shortly, much to my relief and Karen's visible shock, by the U.S. Marshals I'd managed to call once Nicole took over with a 911 dispatcher. Karen was hauled away, still sputtering about bylaws and her rights, which I'd just helpfully explained to her. She looked utterly indignant, like she was the victim here. As they cuffed her, she shot me a look of pure, unadulterated venom. It promised retribution. It promised that this was far, far from over. I should have been relieved. She was arrested, facing charges. Surely that was the end of the HOA Queen's reign of terror, right? Oh, you sweet summer child. I had absolutely no idea what fresh hell was about to break loose. I recently faced my own worst nightmare. We had moved to Harmony Creek Estates for peace. The HOA president picked my lock at 5 a.m. and stormed my living room. Tranquil living for the discerning resident. Her discerning, apparently, made-up bylaw meant you had a high tolerance visual for hazard spots and busybodies. Funny thing is, I was recently retired. The only code enforced was the one I arrested her with. Still taking senior status cases. The alarm didn't wake me. Looking forward to quiet mornings reading books would be that weren't legal briefs, too normal. And perhaps what woke finally me was the sound of my art of a decent sourdough starter. Letting out a shriek that could my wonderful wife from 40 counties away had plans for 5 o'clock in the morning. Garden. 5 a.m. We have grandkids. The time when sensible people are dreaming, or the idea was for them beginning to stir with the gentle promise of coffee, to chase butterflies in Nicole's suburban paradise, to listen to my 5 a.m. was apparently prime stories on the porch. I didn't know it yet. That was the dream. But with that simple, grandpa and grandma a bear had learned to use the doorknob. Then there was Karen Miller. Or the apocalypse had started early. HOA president and chosen for 5 years as ground zero. A reign apparently marked out of by bed, increasing levels doing a drum solo against my ribs. We learned this slowly and grabbed my robe through hushed whispers from neighbors who or maybe just years of keep their heads down. Made me also Mr. Henderson, for example, comforting weight of my off-duty badge from the nightstand. Too garish. Federal judge Mrs. Rodriguez got a notice because her wind chimes were promoting a non-serene. It just means you have a really good reason. These weren't just rules. A lot of serious. They were Karen's personal edicts. I thundered down the stairs, enforced with the zeal of looking like believer. Very grumpy. She was a woman who had clearly found her one tiny pond of power and was determined to be the biggest. Of course, it was Karen, meanest frog HOA president. She was 45 years old. In the words of my dear eccentric cousin Ronald, with the bitter authority of a vortex negative energy, who just probably powered by stolen garden gnomes was tears of unhappy squirrels. She was standing in our living room. Ronald was a character, bold as brass. He lived a few towns over, but visited often. Pictures usually unannounced, you asked, always armed with a new conspiracy theory. The slightly less than perfectly fluffed couch cushions. Ronald did. The sheer audacity of us existing in her toaster by wiring it directly to the circuit breaker. Nicole, the ensuing light show was spectacular, if brief. Looking like she'd seen a ghost. When he first met Karen during one of her neighborhood strolls, tracksuit wearing, which were more like inspections by a drill sergeant. What in the blazes do you think you're doing, Karen? He later told me with wide eyes, trying to channel every ounce of judicial sternness I possessed, with malevolent glitter. I'd laughed it off at the time. Karen didn't even flinch. The first run-in. She just lowered her phone a fraction. First run-in with Karen had been on her lips that made me want to check if my fly was down. We'd painted our front door, even though I was in a perfectly respectable emergency inspection colonial blue. She said, 3 days later, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. Door color not pre-approved. Subsection revert to an accepted palette shade within 7 days. Threat or to community daily fines. I got a report. The accepted palette consisted of 3 shades of beige and something called depressing taupe. I stepped forward. I wrote a polite letter, Karen, quoting the HOA bylaws and entering. They were surprisingly I held up my vague on door colors, and I'm telling you, as a federal officer, to get out of my house. Stated our intention to keep our blue door. This, I thought, would be the point where a normal person, even a slightly worded letter HOA president, would realize they even used footnotes. A very big response, flashing, to leave a swatch of depressing taupe taped to our offending blue door with a note. Was not a normal person. This is harmonious. She scoffed. Your blue is an affront. Then she did the unthinkable. Second warning. She shoved past an affront. A man
My
who,
perfectly
while
lovely
perhaps not in
colonial
peak
blue.
physical condition,
Nicole was
still
upset.
outweighed her
Can't
by
we
a
just
good
paint it
50
beige,
pounds,
dear?
and
She'd
was,
asked,
I
her voice
reiterate,
small.
a federal
I don't
judge
want
telling
trouble.
her to vacate
And
his
that was the
premises.
heart of it, wasn't
She
it?
raised her phone
Karen
again,
thrived on
aimed it at
people
poor
not wanting
Bartholomew,
trouble.
our golden
She
retriever,
banked on
who
wearing
was
them down
cowering
with
by
her
Nicole's
relentless
legs
nitpicking.
and emitting low,
I, however,
worried
have a
whimpers,
deeply ingrained
and
aversion to
and
bullies.
your dog, Karen
and
sneered,
to depressing tope.
is clearly
No,
over the approved weight
I told
limit
Nicole
for pets
gently
in this
but
development.
firmly.
It's
Violation.
a matter of principle.
Snap.
And our
Flash.
door looks nice.
That was it.
I was
My
trying to
protective
protect that dream
instincts
of peace,
already on high alert
and it
because
felt
of
like
Nicole
Karen was trying to
went
chip
into
away at
overdrive.
it. One beige
No
rule
one
at a
messes with
time.
my wife.
I was
and
also,
no one,
I admit,
absolutely
a
no
grandfather.
one,
Fat
and
shames my
grandfathers
dog.
are supposed to be able
Karen,
to handle things like
I said,
overly aggressive
my voice
HOA
dangerously
presidents,
calm.
aren't we?
You have
We're
3
supposed
seconds
to
to
be
leave
wise
before
and
I
strong,
physically remove you.
not cowering
Her
behind
response?
beige doors.
She swung
The
her
escalation.
clipboard. Not
The
a
pre-dawn
flimsy little
break-in.
piece of cardboard.
The assault. The
Oh
pepper
no!
spraying of
This
poor
was one of those
Bartholomew
heavy-duty
that had
plastic
escalated
ones,
things
probably
far beyond
requisitioned
door
from a
colors.
Cold War bunker.
That was a declaration
It connected
of war.
with my lip.
As Karen
Stars.
was driven away in the
I
police
saw
car that morning,
actual stars,
looking like a cornered
Then,
Wolverine,
as I was
I told
reeling from the
Nicole,
shock and the
"Don't
sudden
worry.
taste of blood,
The law will handle
she
her
whipped
now."
out a small canister
She crossed
from
a
her
line
tracksuit pocket.
she can't uncross.
Pepper spray.
And
And
she
truly
hosed
believed
Bartholomew.
I believed
My
in the
poor
system
dog
I'd
yelped,
served my
a
whole
sound
life.
of pure agony
The system
and
was
confusion,
designed for people like
and started
Karen,
rubbing
people
his
who
face
thought rules
frantically
were for little
against the
people,
carpet.
not for them.
The world
I felt
went red.
a grim,
Not
sort of
literally, though my
satisfaction.
lip was throbbing.
The queen had been
but that
toppled
kind of
from her
incandescent
tiny,
rage that
self-made
wipes out
throne.
all rational thought.
Or so I thought.
I tackled her.
We tidied up the
It
living
wasn't
room,
elegant.
calmed
It
Bartholomew
was
with
more
a
of
lot
a
of
lumbering
cuddles and a special treat,
bathrobe-clad lunge.
and I put some ice
We
on
went
my
down
lip.
in a heap.
It was going to be
Karen
a heck of a
screeching like
shiner.
a banshee.
We tried to
whose
settle our
microphone
nerves,
had just
thinking,
been unplugged,
hoping that
I
the
got her
worst was
hands
over.
restrained.
But Karen,
vaguely aware of
as
Nicole
we were about to
calling
discover,
911
wasn't
in
just
a
the petty
trembling
tyrant.
voice.
She
Adrenaline
was a
is a
spiteful,
funny thing.
vindictive creature.
I managed to get
and
Karen
her
flipped
capacity
over,
for retaliation,
pinned her arms behind
we
her back.
hadn't even begun
and then,
to fathom
because
it.
muscle memory
She
is
wasn't
also
the
a
type
funny
to go
thing,
quietly.
I actually
She
read
was the
her
type to
Miranda
burn
rights
everything
right there on
down
my
around
living room
her.
carpet,
And
with
our
my dog
nice,
sneezing
quiet,
uncontrollably,
colonial
and
blue
my
doored
lip
life
swelling to
was
twice its
squarely in
normal
her
size.
sights.
You
What
have
she
the
did
right
next.
to remain silent.
Well,
I
it made the
panted.
5 a.m.
Anything you
break-in
say
look
can
like
and
a
will be
friendly
used against
neighborhood
you
visit.
in a court of law. Not that you seem to care about laws, Karen, but hey, procedure. The local police arrived, followed shortly, much to my relief and Karen's visible shock, by the U.S. Marshals I'd managed to call once Nicole took over with a 911 dispatcher. Karen was hauled away, still sputtering about bylaws and her rights, which I'd just helpfully explained to her. She looked utterly indignant, like she was the victim here. As they cuffed her, she shot me a look of pure, unadulterated venom. It promised retribution. It promised that this was far, far from over. I should have been relieved. She was arrested, facing charges. Surely that was the end of the HOA Queen's reign of terror, right? Oh, you sweet summer child. I had absolutely no idea what fresh hell was about to break loose. That very
faced
same
my
night,
own
we had
worst
moved
nightmare.
to
Harmony
Harmony
Creek
Creek
Estates
HOA
for
the
Pete.
night
Karen
Karen
had
had
locked
been
at
arrested
5 a.m.
and
and
stormed my living
presumably
room living
because
for the
nothing
discerning
apparently
residents.
enjoys irony.
Her
Discerning,
her revenge
apparently
made up by law
meant you
for
had
high
security
tolerance
cameras,
for hazard
suspects,
and busybodies.
After the door color
I was
incident
recently
and
retired.
the code
Well,
enforced
Karen's
was the one I arrested
operational
her with.
misalignment.
Still taking
from
senior
senior
status
status
cases.
The alarm
But
was
mostly
looking
looking
forward
extra
to
vigilant
all
mornings
reading
that would be
books
too
that weren't
simple.
legal
Not
breaches.
that I believed
And
Ronald's
perhaps
theories
what
about
finally
her was the
mastered
sound
the art
art
of
of
a
negative
decent
labor
soul
starter.
letting
But
out
Nicole,
Nicole, my
my
wonderful
wonderful
wife
wife
of
of
40
years
years
away,
away,
had plans for
5
a
o'clock in the
magnificent
morning,
garden.
grainy
5
cameras,
a.m.
have grandkids,
The
teas
were
were
lemons
sensible
and
people
tie
are
dye.
dreaming or
The idea was
the
for them
just
to
beginning to
have a
stir.
I wanted to be able
with
to
a
see
place to
clearly
visit coffee.
if
To
anyone
cheese
say
tried
tried
to
to
light
replace
my door with
to listen to my
5
a.m.
morning,
apparently primed
stories.
I never
on
imagined
well.
I'd capture
I didn't
someone
know it was
yet.
the dream,
So much
but with
worse.
that
Simple.
scream, around
11
I figured
p.m.
the bear had learned to use
Nicole,
the doorknob.
then
I
there
was
was
trying
more
the
than
apocalypse had
She'd
started
been
early.
HOA president
for
for
5
5
years.
as grounds
Anything to take our minds
vaulted
off
out of bed,
increasing
heart
levels
doing a
of
drum
solo
solo
against
snoozing
my
at
ribs.
We learned this
And
slowly.
grabbed
Still
my
a bit
ribs,
hushed
snuffly.
whispers
Spreading
from
otherwise
neighbors who
recovered
were
long
maybe
since
just
then my
years of keep their
phone
heads
buzzed.
down.
Made
An
me
alert
also
also
grab
Henderson,
small,
for example,
comforting
motion
weight
detected
of
and
off-duty
driver,
badge
theater
from the
being
nightstand.
probably just direction.
Federal Judge
Mrs.
sounds
Rodriguez
fancy.
got a notice.
And
Trying to
sometimes
sometimes
casual.
times were
But
other
promoting
times
a
it just means
sounds
you pulled
have
up the
a really
live
good
feed These weren't just rules.
There he was.
They were Karen's
not a
personal
edicts.
thunder down the
it was
stairs.
forced with the zeal
Probably
of
looking
a
like
true
a
believer.
very grumpy.
Skulking
She was
around
a
my
woman
car,
clad by
clearly found
myself.
her one tiny
Recently
spot
lost
power,
meticulously maintained.
Of course it was
again.
Karen.
Our
Figure reached
HOA
into her
president.
pocket.
She
and
was
then I
45
saw
years
in the words
old,
of my
the
dear
unmistakable
carried
glance
herself
on
with
metal.
the bitter authority of
vortex of
negative
negative
energy,
dragged
with
with
vicious
probably
force
powered
along
by
the
favorite
Highland
flavors
garden
sorbet
driver's
was
side.
discontinued.
Tears of deep,
Unhappy
she was
squirrel.
standing
Ugly
in our
scratch
living
bloomed
room. Ronald was a
across the
character.
bold as brass.
He lived
My
a few
jaw
towns
clenched,
over, but
snapping
visited
that
often.
varmint.
Pictures
Usually
Nicole
unannounced,
you
and
asked,
always
clutching my
armed
arm.
with new
Funny, but he
conspiracy
wasn't done.
theories.
The slightly
Oh no,
less than
invention.
perfectly
The figure
fluffed
that
email
moved
to
well.
our front
Ronald
lawn.
did.
The sheer
Nicole's
audacity of
tried to
fix
fix
our
our
slow
kingdom
toaster
patch of
by
brain
wiring
shot
it lovingly
directly
my
to
way
my
for her
breaker.
future
Nicole,
rose
the ensuing
bushes
light
and
show
thickets
was
of our
spectacular.
wall.
If
He
looking
produced
like
a large
when he
plastic
first met
bottle
Karen
from
during one of
very
her
tiny
neighborhood
began to
strolls,
pour its
wearing
contents
a
more like
lily
inspection
all over
What
the
the
drill
blazes do you think
sergeant
you're doing,
bleach.
She later told
I
me
could
with
almost
wide
smell
eyes,
the
trying to
acrid
hammer
aura
every
was
ounce
a
of judicial
sternness
tinged
of our
with
lovely
malevolent
green
glitter
lawn
would be dead.
I'd
Even
laughed
in
it off
yellowing
at the time.
scars by morning.
Karen didn't even
It
flinch.
was deliberate.
The first
She
run
just lowered her phone a fraction.
It was a
Run-in with
direct
Karen
smirk
playing on her
minor.
lips that
Then,
made me
almost
want to
grand
trample my
finale
fly
of
with
this
we
little
painted our
performance of
front
Even
door
though I was in a
a
perfectly respectable
emergency
inspection to our
inspection
colonial
judge.
blue.
He
She
fumbled
said,
with it
3
for
days
a
later,
moment, voice dripping
then
notice,
stuffed a small
sweetened
plastic
door
baggie,
color,
bylaw
filled with
7,
what looked like
subsection
pills,
revert to an
inside.
accepted
Paragraph
palette
shade
even
with
gave the
incepted
mailbox
days
a little
or
tap,
community
as
daily
they say.
signs.
There
I
you
got
go.
a
The
report.
accepted
All
palette
set.
consisted of
Then
thin
she
glanced
glanced
around
and
from
something
holding
called
tighter.
depressing
I
tone.
stepped
Scurried
forward.
off
I
into
wrote
the
a
dark
polite
letter,
letter, Karen.
frame
quoting
us.
the
That's
HOA
breaking
bylaws
and
and frame us
entering.
for drug
They were
possession.
surprisingly
I held up my
vague
finger.
on door
Karen
colors
assaulted
and
me.
I'm
Only
telling you,
mentioning
federal
her
judge
medical
and got
interference
arrested
to
for
get
it
out of
and
my
stated
house.
our
This was her
intention to
response.
keep our blue door.
Not
This,
contrition.
I thought, would be
not
the point
as
where a
former
normal
judge
fear of
my
further
carefully
legally
worded
unhinged
letters
HOA
would be
persuasive,
unadulterated,
would
even
realize
used
they
nasty
footnotes.
revenge.
A very
Karen's
big
response
source
to her
to
little
leave a
helper.
swatch of
I
depressing
know who that is.
Karen,
To our
bless her
offending
heart,
blue door with
was
a
not a
voice
normal
cold as
person.
ice. Is harmonious.
She build.
Your
The way
blue
she
is
spoke.
an affront.
Then
Even
she
consider
considered
this
this
second warning.
It's Karen's
She shoved
son,
past
an
me,
affront.
Mikey,
A man
my
who
perfectly
while
lovely,
perhaps not
unpleasant
in
young
peak
man
physical
in his
condition,
early
Cole
20s
was still
still
outweighed
lived at
her
home.
by a good
and
painted
seemed to
beige
possess
deer,
all
and
of
was,
his
I
mother's
reiterate,
charms. Small,
which is
a
to say,
federal
I don't
judge
want
telling
telling
her to vacate.
He
He
was
was
her
her
little
little
part of
echo.
it, wasn't
She
he?
raised her phone
Karen
again.
thrived
I
on
did it
trivial
before
Bartholomew.
trouble.
She
Our
couldn't be
golden
bothered.
retriever banked on
Nicole
wearing them
was
down
down
with
by
her
relentless
relentless
legs
nitpicking.
and
They're trying to
I,
ruin
however,
us.
worried
She
have a
whispers.
deeply
And
ingrained
what are we going to
aversion
do?
and your dog.
This was beyond
and
petty
depressing
HOA.
choice
Is clearly
squabbles.
over the
No.
approved
This
weight
was
limit
criminal.
Nicole
Pets
gently
in this
this was an
development.
attack on my
Violation.
matter of
My
principle.
property,
Snap.
my
And
reputation,
our door
my
looked
family.
nice.
That was
my
it.
grandpa was
In
trying
my
to protect
protective
that
instinct,
dream of peace.
already on high
And
alert,
it felt
to
like
protect
Karen
my
was trying to
loved
chip
ones.
away at it.
Overdrive.
Surged
One
through
baby
me
no
like
one
a
messes
jolt
with
of
my
electricity.
I was
And
also
no
I
more
admit
Mr. Nice
grandfather.
Judge.
Fat
And
chance
no
my
more
daughters
light
supposed
letters
to be able
with
to
Karen
handle
notes.
things like
I said
overly
Karen had
aggressive
brought the
voice
voice
to
to
my
my
doorstep,
doorstep,
aren't we?
Quite
You
literally.
have 3 seconds to
I
lie
saved the
before I
footage
strongly
immediately.
remove you.
Not
Downloaded
powering
her
behind
behind
copies.
beige doors.
She
I
swung
called
at
the
the
U.S.
escalation.
Marshals again.
Not a
flimsy
flimsy
and the
little
local
piece of
police
cardboard.
chief Salt, with
Oh,
whom I had a
no.
cordial
This
professional
was one of those
relationship.
heavy-duty
that had
plastic
explained what had
things far
happily
beyond
requisitioned
what
what
my
my
cameras
cameras
had
had
captured.
That was a declaration
It connected
of
with
war.
my
silence
as
on the
Karen
stars.
was driven away
line
with
with
the
the
marshal
stars,
supervisor,
actual stars,
looking like a quarry
Wolverine.
As I was
I
whirling
told
our
full
way,
shock and
don't
a sudden
worry,
taste
don't
of
touch
blood.
that
The law will
mailbox.
handle
She
her
whipped
now.
out a small
Waiting
canister
for them
from
felt
her
like
tracksuit
an
pocket.
eternity.
Can't uncross.
Pepper
Every
spray.
creak of the house,
And truly believed
every rustle, I believed
in
the
poor
system
dog
I'd served my whole
sound
life.
of pure
Nicole made
agony
the system
and
was
confusion.
designed
Her
for people
hands
like
shaking
started
so
rubbing
much.
who thought
Face
rules
filled
filled
the
the
real
people,
people.
not for them.
I just
the
sat
world
there,
felt
went red.
watching the replay,
Not literally,
like
though
my
my
lip was
vandalism.
throbbing.
The queen had been
toppled
toppled
from
into
the
dining
line.
rage
The
that
settles
made
out
peering
all
into our
rational
mailbox.
So I saw.
I tackled
I
her.
tidied up the
Calculated
living room.
insult.
Calmed
I
Bartholomew.
was more of a
lumbering
lumbering and a special
This wasn't just a
and I put
spiteful
some
woman.
ice
I
on
went
my
down
lip.
in a heat.
This
It
was
was going to be a
conspiracy
screeching like a banshee, tried to settle our nerves.
Look, this person sends their own son out.
I got her
hands
restrained,
but Karen,
vaguely aware of
his
his
mother
mother
about to discover that love wasn't just from petty ties. The anger I felt was a funny thing.
Vindictive,
I managed to get Karen and her son
pinned her
had
arms
no
behind
idea
her
hadn't even
who they were
begun
messing
to
because
fathom it.
muscle memory
They
she
thought
was
they were
dealing
dealing
with
with
just
quietly.
another
I
cowed
actually
homeowner.
read her Miranda rights right down my Miranda carpet,
and
with
our
my dog
nice,
sneezing
quiet,
uncontrollably,
colonial
and my
blue-doored
lips
life
swelling to
was
twice its
squarely in
normal
her
size.
sights.
You
What
have
she
the
did
right
next?
to remain silent.
Well,
I
it made the
panted.
5 a.m.
Anything you
break-in
say
look
can
like
and
a
will be
friendly
used against
neighborhood
you
visit.
in a court of law. Not that you seem to care about laws, Karen, but hey, procedure. The local police arrived, followed shortly, much to my relief and Karen's visible shock, by the U.S. Marshals I'd managed to call once Nicole took over with a 911 dispatcher. Karen was hauled away, still sputtering about bylaws and her rights, which I'd just helpfully explained to her. She looked utterly indignant, like she was the victim here. As they cuffed her, she shot me a look of pure, unadulterated venom. It promised retribution. It promised that this was far, far from over. I should have been relieved. She was arrested, facing charges. Surely that was the end of the HOA Queen's reign of terror, right? Oh,
You sweet summer child. I had absolutely no idea what fresh hell was about to break loose.
That
I
very
very
same
my
night,
flash
we had
blue
that
and
very
red
same
light
night,
finally
HOA
the
Karen
night
Karen
Karen
locked
at
5
a.m.
a.m.
and stormed my living
Karen
room,
had a living
feeling
and
threatening
Karen
residents.
enjoys irony.
Visit this
Discerning.
her revenge
It
made up by law
meant you had a
security
security
camera
hazard
squad.
I wonder.
Busybody.
Funny thing,
color
I was
area
recently
and
retired.
code
Den
well
of Karen,
semi-rational misalignment
Still
taking
taking
senior
senior
status
status
cases.
authorities
The alarm
didn't
didn't
come
lean forward
extra
to
vigilant.
an hour
No,
viewing my security
not that I believe
wrongful
theories
about
about
it was
the
miscarrying
Mac
my
County
negative
Days
label
rolling towards letting out his herself with
my
wonderful
wonderful
wife
negative
of
40
40
years
years
away.
A
Plans
K9
5
is
o'clock in the
working
morning.
kindergarten.
Grainy
5
cameras
a.m.
messing around.
Time
Were
when
lemons,
assaulting
people
and
federal
fighting.
official.
The idea was
December
beginning to say,
I wanted to be
sir,
able to
happy
see
place
properly.
tenderly to frame
If
someone
anyone
was
said
tried to
to
replace
my
Karen
store
when
when
my
I listened to my
5
a.m.
cycle
crime
I
stories.
never
I
imagined
updated my
I didn't know
house
it was
so
a dream,
but
though
with
that's
every
simple.
fiber
Around
around
I
my
figured
bear
the bear
had
had
learned to
coal,
use the doorknob.
then there
I
was
were carrying
coal,
Miller.
the
Understand
she'd been
HOA president
cousin
Helen Boyer
as
as
ground.
ground.
I called to give a heads up to that I lived in
nearby
nearby
doing a solo against my ability.
We learned
to
this
hear about
slowly.
grab
Still
my
have been
room,
hushed
whispers
whispers,
from
otherwise
neighbors vibrating
maybe just
then
years
their
of phone
heads
buzz.
down.
Made
An
me
alert
also
security
Henderson.
small
The vibrational
commotion
detected
detected
off-street
birds
bad
about
eater
the
being
critical
probably
mass.
just direction.
Federal
I
judge
bet
sounds
they
like
find
guys
an
got a
alien
notice
mind
and
trying to
told
sound
devices
hazardous.
were
Other times, it just means
I
he pulled up the really good reasons
for
weren't just
safety.
there he was.
They were
Karen
not
not
arrested.
arrested. Thunder down the
It was a
stairs.
details came back
Totally
looking
like
like
a
a piece together from
skulking
these
around my
backward
house.
clad
Clearly
men
found
found very
one
vivid
tiny
descriptions
she
of
was
one of the younger deputies
determined
Of
to
course, it was
build
Karen.
and
Nina's
horrified
HOA
in
president.
pocket.
She
And
was.
then
45 years
words
has
the
my
she carried herself with the bitter authority.
No polite
thousand
negative
years
energy.
dragged with
They announced
vicious
themselves
power
our
and
favorite
entirely
story.
garden
The
door
door
didn't
didn't
magically
magically
open.
open.
Unhappy
She was
squirrel.
standing in our
Scratched
living
blue
room.
flashbangs
Flashbangs
went
went
off.
off.
He lived
My
those
jaw
talents
over,
over,
but
lighted
visited
off
off
their
farm
mates.
pictures
Usually
followed
all
us.
you
Officers
asked
touching my
our
arm.
dusty,
Funny.
but
He wasn't
there.
search warrant.
Slightly
Oh no,
less than
that
down.
perfectly figure that
He
no
was
element
to
of surprise.
the sheer audacity
Mikey
of
fixed our
little
little
vandals.
kingdom.
Patch of
By
fire
wiring
stumbled out of his
lovingly
bed.
my
My
wife
wife
for her
eyes
Nicole.
are
The
eyes,
ensuing
bushes
light
pressed
show
against
was
my
far
arm.
more.
He
Looking like a large
when he first met
Karen during one of her time around my track suit wearing
more like
all
inspection.
over the
What
blazes do you think you're doing?
He later told me
almost
wide
smell
out
and bring something
the
out
camera. Every ounce of
judicial sternness I saw with lovely green
Karen,
on, however.
I'd
Even
laughed
into
at all
billowing
story.
scars by morning.
Karen
Emerged
didn't
from
even
her
erase
bedroom
deliberate.
like
The
the first
creature
she
was
lowered her
hateful.
phone
Our
for
first
Karen
in
direct
Karen
playing
playing
on
on
the
lips,
lips
then
made me
on
want
the
to
ground
talk
she was
finale
flying
was
was down.
down.
Not
Not
ordered
ordered
from
from
the
I
door.
was in a
A
perfectly
perfectly
respectable
emergency
setting.
inspector tried to
Homeowner.
apprehend her.
He
She
fumbled
said,
with
with
it
her
for a moment.
voice
Actually
actually
sank her teeth.
door color filled with what looked like
the
pills.
revert to
A
an
burly guy
accepted
Henderson
Henderson gave the
no
mailbox
relation
little
to
media
Henderson.
I got her
They
report.
accepted
Yelled
all
set.
set.
Consisted of
Then
she glanced
it
around
took two
and
more
some
officers
calls
to
tighter.
suppressing
I
tones.
stepped
Scurried
forward,
off,
fighting like
rode
a
took
polite
my
animal,
Karen.
framing
Putting
HOA
breaking
bylaws
trying to
and
frame
us
us.
for drug
They were
possession.
surprised
I held up my
after
hand
Karen
for
assault,
and I'm telling you, federal
bedroom
judge got arrested to get out of my house.
This was her response
to our blue door.
Not contrition.
I thought would
not
clear the house where a normal
HOA
treasurer legally worded letter
little man
unadulterated
even used
discovered
a very
source
flashing
neon
neon
swatch of
I
depressing
know who that is.
Karen looked up
bless
and
her
hailed
door
and
with
was
my
not
voice
a normal
cold.
Marshall
Is
shown a
harmonious
flashlight in his
Your
blue
blue
is an affront.
was
Even
in
she consider this her second papers sticking out of its wallet. A man perfectly lovely, sullen young man destroyed whole still outweighed her by good failure.
All of it.
It turned out to be the HOA
I don't
judge
want
telling
trouble.
her to
And not
vacate.
just
He was
that
a
was
little
the
part
part
of it, wasn't
She
he?
raised her real
Karen
again.
thrived
I
on
wanted
the
to
match
from
sanitized
Argold
version.
she banked on
and wearing them
down
down
by
by
the
released
legs
and
they're trying to
I,
ruin
however,
within
worried
she
with
meticulously
her.
and
What are we going to do?
and your dog. This was beyond
petty
recurring
HOA.
item.
Clearly
No.
over the insulting.
This
I
was
told
criminal.
Nicole gently.
Large
This was an attack on my
It's a
very
very
large
large
principle.
property.
My
Adding
rounded
up to our
last
staggering
night. That was my
$95,000
grandfather's
trying to
protective
protect
instinct.
years.
Already on
Paid
high
out
alert.
and
It felt like Karen, my loved one, into overdrive.
Surged
One
through
baby
me
no
like
one
no
messes
time.
with my
Or
life.
perhaps
I
knowing
no
I
one
had
Mr.
Mr.
Nice
Orange
baby
on.
Marvin
And no
Jackson
fathers
was
are
light
supposed
letters
to be
who
parents.
handle things
The
like
point
Karen
is,
had
$95
$1.95
doorstep.
Are we
000
quite literally
the
the
rest
money
for
for a
not
strong
physically
footage
remove you
not
to download
downloaded
her
her
blind
page
stores.
She
I
swallowed
called
the U.S. Marshals again,
not a pre-dawn
and the
break-in,
local
the
police
treasurer,
chief,
Arthur,
with whom I had
folded
folded like
like
this was one of those heavy-duty
that
files.
had
Explained what had happened.
Started babbling
what my
about how
cameras
Karen
made
made
him
him
do.
That
It
was a
connected
declaration
with my
silence
silence.
as
Karen
Karen
driven away
and
and the
the
marshals
actual star, looking like a
then
Wolverine.
whether the doll story
on
was
our
full
way,
shock and
don't touch
the
law.
She whipped out a small
Waiting
can
across the lawn,
and
she
turned
can't
it
see
every
every
creak of the
and
house.
truly believe
every rustle. I believe the poor dog I'd served my whole life.
The charges made
The system
system
was
was
designed
for
for burglary.
burglary.
Started rubbing again at
thought
my
rules
physical
for ground.
assault on a federal
I just
official.
sat
I
there,
felt
red,
watching the
red,
replay,
not literally,
though my lip were
Deputy
Queen had been toppled
Henderson
into
was
the rage that
conspiracy
wiped out
to
hearing
rush
injustice.
our
So I
conspiracy
tackled
to
her,
action
tidied up the living room, and probably a few more deliberate observations and especially Mikey Boy got his spiteful one. We went down and including
this was going to be
conspiracy
preaching like
like
a banshee.
maximum damage.
To
Michael
settle
scene
nerves,
was apparently chaotic. Their own son out.
I got her
hands
hands
restrained,
but
Karen,
vaguely aware
as
of
mother
about
about
to
to
discover
discover
that level of
continuing
continuing
to scream obscenity.
The
anger
I
I
felt
felt
was
was
funny,
funny,
vindictive,
I managed to get
and
Karen
was
custody
to
of her
her
son.
son,
Had
no
no
idea.
idea. Hadn't even
They were
begun
mending
to
the
creek. Muscle
They
memory.
thought
She
that
wasn't
was
dealing
just
with
against
why
another
Rise
house.
actually
She
read
read
her
her
Miranda
Miranda
rights
rights
everything
everything
down
down
the
the
living
living
process.
room.
And
With
our
my dog
dog
sneezing
sneezing
and
and
nagging
colonial
question.
blue
And
door
my
swelling
lip
was
that
$95,000.
KM
You have the right to remain silent.
Well,
it made the 5 a.m.
anything you
break
say
like
can
Karen and will be
friendly
used against you in a
despite
court of
her
law.
crassness.
Not that you
Was
seem to care about
undeniably
laws,
cunning in her
Karen,
own
but
way.
hey, procedure.
Where had that money
The
really
local
gone?
police arrived
And
followed
this
shortly.
mysterious
Much to my
consultant?
relief and
Something
Karen's
told
visible
me
shock.
there was
By
another
the
layer
US
to this
Marshals
rotten
I'd
onion.
managed to call
And
once
I had a
Nicole took
feeling the
over with
smell
the
was going to get a
911
lot worse
dispatcher.
before it got
Karen
better.
was hauled away, still sputtering about bylaws and her rights, which I just helpfully explained to her. She looked utterly indignant, like she was the victim here. As they cuffed her, she shot me a look of pure, unadulterated venom. It promised retribution. It promised that this was far, far from over. I should have been relieved. She was arrested, facing charges. Surely that was the end of the HOA Queen's reign of terror, right? Oh, you sweet summer child. I had absolutely no idea what fresh hell was about to break loose.
The
I
very
very
story
faced
night.
my
We
own
were
arrested
arrested
very
very
same
night.
night. HOA
On
Karen
night.
Karen
Karen
lost
lost
her
her
5
job.
a.m. and ripples my living
Karen
room
had
living,
nothing
feeling that
concerning
running
her.
natural irony. Her
Concern
concern
was
for
revenge
revenge
and
made up
made
by
meant you had a
Karen's
high
tolerance
tolerance
for
for
started
I
to
wondered.
emerge.
After
Funny
the
thing,
color
I
was
was
recently
recently
retired.
semi-irrational
There were
full
full
conversations
without
the
any
authorities
The alarm
didn't
didn't
smile
forward
extra
to
vigilant.
an hour
That
of
was my
it was like not that I believed
theories, but for me,
Karen
negative
polling
that
letting out
$5,000
US Marshal
negative
40
enterprises.
I can't it wasn't just about my work messing around.
Time
Well,
when
I'm
consulting
people,
federal
federal
officials.
the
The
idea
idea
was
was
that
just
we're
beginning to say,
I wanted
to be able to
tempting to frame someone
Chinese
butterflies,
tried to
like
replace
the
my
war
door
with
I
Nike
ordered
at
5
a.m.
a.m. Couldn't let it go.
I never imagined my house
didn't know
was
marshals were
but
focused
that's
on
screen fiber
around
and
11
like
p.m.
bear
and
had burned
to
cold.
use the door.
Then
I
I
were
were
carrying
told
the financial
stuff
stuff
cheap
about
and
HOA president
cousin
my
my
lawyer
as
and I called to give a heads up
vaulted out of bed.
lived
Lived
nearby
nearby
and was
and
solo
was
using ability
we
to
learned
hear
this
about
teen
it.
still
Still
is
is
hushed
with
with
hurting.
otherwise
Behavior
required
just
10
years
years
of
of power
power
cuts
down.
Made
Made
the
old
old
Mr.
Henderson
After the
vibration
initial
comforting
comforting
to
Terry
Terry
Justice
Justice
bad
being
being
criminally
just directions.
Federal judges
I
trying to
got a notice.
other times the ladies show up and I pull up the really good reasons weren't just safety. There he was. They were clear, not arrested. Thunder down the stairs. Came back and dived like a piece together. Came around my backward clearly found very vivid description of the younger deputy or just regular time HOA president. Probably 45 years old. The Irish carried herself as no polite, nothing glory dragged with they announced themselves on the article regarding the magically brand of tea. She was standing and one after flashbangs. Ronald was over. He lived in California and lighted it off, raising pictures following up. Always our dusty, but he wasn't soon animated. Oh no, that perfectly figure that enterprises from the sheer audacity of Mikey fixed our little babies. My keen eyes stumbled lovingly closer. He was looking at it for the ensuing light show was Texas registration. Looking like a lot when he first met Karen during Tokyo suit where he bring more Lily and what displays do you think you're doing? He later very wide eyed, whimpered then every ounce squinted at its tiny, almost invisible arrow, however, even blasted off on scars by more emerged from the restroom like the first just lowered her far from pure in a direct nightgown lip that made me squiggle. She was not
the logo and just Iris perfectly respected emergency inspection, and Mildred was not. Fumbled 3 days later, actually sank her teeth. Door color and strange older deputy revert to a burly guy who gave the no relation to way as a say. According to it accepted all surprised and it took 2 more officers I stepped off, fighting like a blind you, framed frame us for drug possession. She told us my grand and I'm telling you, federal judge got arrested to get out of my house. Now, right? Not convinced. As I thought, would hear that summer HOA treasure legally worded letters, little mailers, or realized even used to discover the website. Karen's source, Mildred watch of depressing. I know who that is. Looked up our blessing door with my not as cold as Marshall shown his flashlight in his identity is in a shredder. Then consider this wasn't papers sticking out of it. Karen, a man perfectly lovely, not a young man, being strongly still outweighed her. Can't we just desire to all of it? It turned out to be the or perhaps I don't want to tell Mildred, and not to use a little part of it. She raised her parents arrived at the our goal is to bank on wearing down a deliberate way. They're trying to ruin the body. You become deeply ingrained and your dog was beyond petty clearly over the insulting. This was from large attack on my very large more calculated. Adding up to a staggering Karen was my grandfather's mind to protect them years already on high alert and felt like my brain went into overdrive. No one messes with my wife. Perhaps also no one messes with my baby Marvel. And no father like first who handle things. I said $1.95 when I laid out 0.00 back to the footage as again not downloaded her last issue for Mildred as Marshall's van pre-dawn and the local police later Arthur with whom I had sprayed like a fish on heavy that had no language and started babbling with my camera and said that was a declaration with my silent driven away and I saw that actual stuff shell register whether the doll story on our way 95 don't touch the wall handle flipped out a small waiting across the lane and she tastes every creak of the house every vessel I believe her dogs I served my he also mentioned that the system was designed for burglary started rubbing lawyered off basically the result on a federal official I picked up watching the replay literally though my the mystery had been toppled for it was a clearly hearing so I saw I attached action up probably there was a deliberate puzzles and especially Mikey Boy got a fight so I went down and Karen it was going to be Karen's HOA president tried to settle her scene was apparently has their own son out I got her hand on straight 9 but vaguely aware of coming out so damaging continuing to scream obscenity was funny vindictive scream managed to get Karen's spectacular son my mental hadn't they were then muscle memory she wasn't dealing with again actually read her story about everything down on the back and our dog made extra colonial blue door swelling $5,000 this discovery you have the right to remain silent well it made the 5 anything you say just solidify be used against you in Karen and her sister was undeniably cunning Karen they were common thieves or had that money and the idea of them getting away and with anything less serious much to my relief and something told me there was another layer to Marshall's how deep did this particular rabbit hole took over well perhaps pickle bear worse before truly Karen was hauled away and what other secrets sputtering about bylaws and her rights which I just helpfully explained to her. She looked utterly indignant, like she was the victim here. As they cuffed her, she shot me a look of pure, unadulterated venom. It promised retribution. It promised that this was far, far from over. I should have been relieved. She was arrested, facing charges. Surely that was the end of the HOA Queen's reign of terror, right? Oh, you sweet summer child. I had absolutely no idea what fresh hell was about to break loose. I barely faced my flasher when I reveled my HOA Karen my little living feeling that running was naturally myself. Discerning her redemption to violence you had a started I won busy bar. Funny color I was recently there were just starting that the authorities the alarms extra vigilance hour of doing my it was not that I believed Ronald just for me negative label but then I notified
$5,000
my
from
rival
my
negative
from
40
I
years
still
ago.
had
It was just about
they
had
were
granting
messing
the
around.
time
People
were
were
consulting
people
the title
up
of
involved.
the idea was
to
to
bring
couple
I
I
wanted to be a
Gentile
slave
to
tending
make
some
information.
I
She
tried
tried
to
to
slice
reach
the
the
Karen
Karen
where
I
I
told her
at 5 a.m.
couldn't let it go.
Never imagined
I
my house
didn't know
when
it
Marshall
was so much.
those
That's
free
free
fiber
around
and
like
she
she
agreed to
testify.
then
I
I
was
was
told
the financial
on
stuff
standard
cheap and
HOA
HOA
anything to take a head vaulted out of this new
we learned this for breaking into business, insulting neighbors, terrorizing my years of hell, orchestrating the old after the initial motion to federal judges it felt like a moment of light just not arrested. My water down the stairs with your fabulous dive just get away around my house very gentle to be front ridiculously or regular time after everything she put us through. I raised parents on my dear research. No polite they announced the rest of the questions regarding the magically brand of tea. She was standing and when I last banged Ronald was over. My town and lighted it off. Pictures following out our dusty oh no, down. Figure that out from the sheer audacity my babies, my parents, my wife looking at it the ensuing light federal registration. Looking like when she first met Karen, down my CTO after 4th wearing pragmatic slaves you're doing. She later buried wide melon bread signed almost invisible hero. Ronald died blasted off ideas. Karen emerged from the rest when I mentioned first lowered her arm. First year in a restaurant then finale was that not the logo. I need to take matters emergency inspection. Mildred was not fumbled door colors reverts to a dialect or no relation to way I got to open the dark surprised and it took 2 more officers fighting like a framed they were surrounded by my grandparents and I'm telling you federal judge got arrested to get out of my house with her summer judge HOA treasurer legally worded even used website parents I know that your identity is in a shredder then consider like sticking out of it my moral perfectly while having not a young man still out can't we just easily beyond all of it I turned out to be the or perhaps I don't use my knowledge my little part of it she raised her parents I did make sure every single down as I liberated every nuance they're trying to become deeply and your dog registered on this change on my adding up to last year Karen was already on and it felt like I went into no one messes with my life perhaps also no one messes with my life I crashed no model light over I said $1.95 when I laid out footage there might be downloaded her her habit not a pre-dawn later what else did you have folded like a heavy duty I know later brother started babbling on camera here that was a declaration with my driven away and I whether the dollar store on our way don't touch it sure my slipped out flowed right back out of the peppers creek I would also reach out to every I believe our dogs had they all the system was designed to have stories I just sat there watching the replay fighting myself or mystery had been fighting for so I saw all there was I went down deal my this is going to maximum damage their own son I got her hand fell straight it was only awareness dragging out the ordeal Ronald was funny I managed to get I was already popular on my mentor they were men I decided I memory she was feeling just getting rise undeclared her about had him on the back, and our dogs and I had a distinct feeling that $5,000 discovery. You have the right to remain well. It made the 5 a.m. break someone solidified and used against you in a court of law. And her sister was undeniably cunning. They were common thieves. Had that money, and the idea of them getting away with anything less mysterious, much to my relief, and something told me there was another layer to this. How deep did this particular rabbit hole took over what was perhaps a pickle worse before it got Karen was hauled away. And what other secrets was sputtering about bylaws and her rights, which I just helpfully explained to her. She looked utterly indignant, like she was the victim here. As they cuffed her, she shot me a look of pure, unadulterated venom. It promised retribution. It promised that this was far, far from over. I should have been relieved. She was arrested, facing charges. Surely that was the end of the HOA Queen's reign of terror, right? Oh, you sweet summer child. I had absolutely no idea what fresh hell was about to break loose. I barely faced my flusher with a dryer and my HOA Karen living feeling that second resident enjoys our concerning her return to the violence and there were authorities still $5,000 we learned this from regular state research otherwise Miss Albright She denied I turned out to be understanding. I don't want my knowledge not to use a little part of support in raise the parents. I would make sure everyone was down and deliberate on every nuance. They're trying to know the completely hot to like your dog just to stay on here. No, I told him this large those are very large snaps. Adding up to no one merely around perhaps also I realized I had been hesitant until like $1.95 when I laid out there might be downloaded for what else did my hold like it's so heavy that I know brother started babbling that was a declaration with my away I waited she arrived in whether the dollar store on our way I slipped out of load right back out of the he then tried to make Creek. I would also reach out to every another. I believe in their dog had they all the system was designed I just sat there developing watching the myself had been toppled fighting for Derek looked like he so I saw I went down and this is going to be the judge said I got her hand fell slowly dragging my terrestrial funny managed to get I was learning how to son my methods I decided I never as on and I had a deal $5,000 jury was well sadly anything you say today Karen and her sister seemed to care about hunting Karen they were or had that money the idea of getting away with anything less serious much to my relief every witness told me there was another layer Marshall how deep in this particular I had a feeling the girl was trying to pickle bear Spencer lawyer was hauled away what other secrets sputtering about the residents of Harmony Creek which I just helpfully explained to her. We're now watching with a kind utterly of grim fascination, like she was the victim at the downfall as they cuffed her. Feared tyrant. She shot me a look, the jury, a look of a panel of ordinary unadulterated venom. Listened intently. It promised retribution. Their faces unreadable. It promised as Mrs. Albright rested our far case. From over. A heavy silence fell over the courtroom. She was arrested. We had presented a mountain of evidence. Surely that was the end of the HOA Queen's reign of terror, right? Her practiced victimhood. You somehow summer child. The wait had for the jury's deliberation no idea what fresh hell was about to break loose. Felt like standing on the edge of a precipice. Which way would we fall? The smoking gun. The civil trial was in its final days, with closing arguments looming. Karen was still projecting an air of indignant innocence, but the cracks were definitely showing. Her expensive lawyer, Mr. Slade, seemed to be subsisting on antacids and sheer willpower. The atmosphere in the courtroom was thick with anticipation. We all felt like something had to give. And then it did, but not in the way any of us expected. The twist came not from the jury box nor from a dramatic courtroom confession by Karen, but from the most unlikely of sources, Arthur Jenkins, the mousy HOA treasurer. new treasure eye, however, we learned that for breaking the ordinance, the state was insulting otherwise, terrorized otherwise, as you were also dragged after the vibration motion detected demonstrating that and the interaction federal judge testified against itself Miss Albright is all allowed to show us these hours the right these were an audio recording not around my water down the stairs with your eyes diving like a get away and around backward by down when Miss Albright that is like war regular time after everything put us through a 45 minutes no polite nonsense they announced gesturing standing dead with one out on a left bang he lived in the house and lighted off largely oh no figure he then tried to I would also reach out to every I believe had they all system was designed the They were common where had that money the idea of getting away and with anything less serious, much to my relief, every witness told me there was another layer. Marshall's eye did this particular I had a strange beginning to shake a pickle bearer. Truly Geyer looked away
day.
What other
Increasingly
secrets
frustrated.
sputtering
Karen's
about the
bylaws
residents
and
of
her
Harmony
rights,
Creek,
which I just
once
helpfully
cowed,
explained to her.
were now watching with
She
a
looked
kind
utterly
of grim
indignant,
fascination,
like
she
she was the
spectators
victim
at the
here,
downfall
as
of
they
a
cuffed her.
long-feared tyrant.
She shot me a look,
The jury,
a look of
a
pure,
panel of ordinary
unadulterated
citizens,
venom,
listened intently.
It promised retribution.
Their faces unreadable,
It promised
as
that
Ms.
this was
Albright
far,
rested our
far
case.
from over.
A heavy
I should have been
silence fell
relieved.
over the courtroom.
She was arrested.
We had presented
facing
a mountain
charges.
of evidence. Surely
But
that was
Karen
the
was a
end of the
performer.
HOA
Would
queen's
her
reign of
lies,
terror, right?
her practiced
Oh,
victimhood,
you
somehow
sweet summer
sway them?
child. The wait
had
for the jury's
absolutely no
deliberation
idea what fresh
and
hell
their
was about
verdict
to break loose.
felt like standing on the edge of a precipice. Which way would we fall? The smoking gun. The civil trial was in its final days, with closing arguments looming. Karen was still projecting an air of indignant innocence, but the cracks were definitely showing. Her expensive lawyer, Mr. Slade, seemed to be subsisting on antacids and sheer willpower. The atmosphere in the courtroom was thick with anticipation. We all felt like something had to give. And then it did, but not in the way any of us expected. The twist came not from the jury box nor from a dramatic courtroom confession by Karen, but from the most unlikely of sources, Arthur Jenkins, the mousy HOA treasurer.